Welcome back to Living Green. I'm Kimon Kotos, and I'm here with Paul Keiser of Agriculture and Health Alive. And Paul, we've been discussing a lot of things regarding the seeds, the fertility of the soil, why healthy food and healthy living matters to us. I'd like to discuss a little bit more about some of the larger changes we've seen happen in the world. You know, we've had volcanoes, we've had Chernobyl, we've had floods, we've had some serious dynamic effects that have happened to this planet, not only here in the United States but internationally. And let's talk about how we as citizens can get involved and be much more conscious about how we eat and how we use the resources we have.
Well, the original purpose of the United States as a constitutional republic was that citizen participation was what it's all about. And a republic is the representation. Everybody is supposed to get representation in the government so that we're self-governing. That was the original purpose. And we became, in the 20th century, we became, the American dream was becoming a consumer of material goods. And then the government was taking care of everything for us, and that psychology is still present. And then the population bonded with television programming. Many of the people that have land in the countryside or lovely yards, they could be gardening on spring and summer evenings. They're in watching TV programs and not even growing food for themselves anymore. I know that you can buy it cheaper at Walmart or something like that. I can buy it cheaper at the market. Then I can grow it myself. So that's one of the things, growing, even if you're in an apartment, have some potted plants out on your porch or this type of thing, or in your window. And with those that have yards, start growing your own vegetables again. Put some berries and fruits out there. There's wonderful nut trees that Ken Asmus of Kotos Tree Crops east of Kalamazoo, he's down in Lawton. And he's growing wonderful nut trees of chestnuts and hazelnuts, and he's got native plums, and he's growing a palm even, and a northern pecan. Just all these wonderful things that we can have all around us to just enjoy these wonderful foods. And it's getting involved, and so that we really live in a community again. We're helping our neighbors, we're relating to our neighbors, we're helping them. I mean, the Amish put up barns and houses and sheds and shops, and they pay no labor. They all chip in with their church community. It's all pooled labor resource. There's no labor costs. And even some of the materials they often use are salvaged materials that they share among themselves. So just imagine how the costs of construction, you don't have to contend with subcontractors and this type of thing when you're putting up a building. And we have to come back to these cooperative things. We need to do these things cooperatively. There's ways even to raise capital debt-free. We don't have to go to a bank or a credit union and borrow money to do some of these things if we set up these cooperative ways of doing it. In Western India, the fishing people, now there's a movement there where they have one boat that belongs to the village. And so during the fishing season, the members of the village, the different families, take turns doing the village boat. And whatever wealth that brings to the village, that's shared with whatever the village needs are, and that's decided in a village council. Farms can do the same things. Even urban crafts could do the same thing. A way to raise community capital to help some of these young urban farmers that want to get land, to help them get back on the land. So there's a lot of things like this that just aren't being thought about. You're not going to read it in the New York Times. You're not going to hear it in the evening news on TV or anything like that. But some of these things are happening, and they can happen here. The rural electric cooperatives and the rural telephone cooperatives took these lines out into the vast rural areas that the big telephone companies didn't want to touch. They weren't going to finance it themselves. So the people formed co-ops, and they ran the lines out to them for themselves. So there's many of these things that we can do on a cooperative basis, food co-ops for one thing, and craft co-ops. And there are cooperative antique shops and this type of thing. And this is how we need to recreate our cooperative community and recreate our local economy and convert many of these lands out here that are growing corn and soybeans for export out back into growing products we need, including fibers and energy as well as foods, this type of thing, for our local markets and for our cooperatives.
Well, you mentioned cooperatives. I mean, going back 100 years ago, whether it was here in the Midwest or in North Dakota, even still in parts of this country, there are rural cooperatives that are very successful and have set up banking institutions and fuel things. I know in North Dakota they're very successful at that. So getting back into working in a shared way is an important aspect in terms of building a community and a culture. One of the things I'd like to explore a little bit is community-supported agriculture and how you've seen that movement change and how people are coming together, investing from the urban community with farmers to help, invest in making sure that there's a viable crop.
That's a movement that has grown tremendously from when it started in the 80s. Even back in the 70s in Gloucester County, New Jersey, I was growing some vegetables and melons, and I had 4 shareholders. It was like in 1974. I had 4 shareholders. So Robin Van En started the official one in the Berkshires of Western Massachusetts. She was one of my customers when I managed Hawthorne Valley Farm Store. And so that split off into 2 and became 2 nice large CSAs, and that just movement has spread all over North America.
Well, for people in our audience who might not know what a community-supported agricultural movement is all about, could you explain what a CSA is?
Well, people invest in the early part of the season in the coming crops. And so it's a bit of a risk. They're taking a risk with the grower because we can't all say that we're going to have a full crop of tomatoes, a full crop of squash, a full crop of lettuce through 20 to 25 weeks during the growing season. But these shareholders take that risk and invest in that year's crop and help the farmer. Now, I know that some of the Waldorf schools where you have a real close community with a biodynamic farm, they form a core group out of the parents of that Waldorf school. And this core group said the farmer brings in the budget for this year that we're in the wintertime, that's ahead. And then the parents that are in these core groups, they say, okay, we're going to raise the money. You take care of the farming. So the farmer doesn't have the headache. They have a budget. They have to raise X number of dollars. The core group does that. And so the farmers can think about doing the farming and not worry about the money, which
that makes sense.
Wonderful.
Well, and as you have experienced in your life, it takes a husband and a wife and a real family to make a farm work.
Right. There are some maverick hermit-type farmers and ranchers, but there's days when they wish they had help. I know that. Well,
and it's true that across the country that many times the real farm income comes because one of the members of the family has to go off farm to keep the farm alive. And, this along with other issues we're going to continue to explore, but we need you to stay with us here on Living Green, and we want to help you raise your awareness about how you can be a healthy consumer as well as someone who protects the land you're living on.